Welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today is our Thursday Losers or Winners series, and I thought I was overdue for me to share a losing story. So the whole point of this series is just to basically talk about things that have really losses that we've had or experiences that we've had that have led us to, very difficult moments that all entrepreneurs go through, and really how is informed our future and how it's helped us. And so I was giving this some thought this last weekend, excuse me, and I think probably one of the most defining quote fail stories of my career was in 2008. I got overextended well before the crash. It was about 10 months before, the stock market collapse, which was that October of 2008. And I bought a home, and it should have been a tear down. I basically fell in love with my own work, and I did it too nice. It was going to be a spec home remodel in a very desirous area. And I've never been great at doing spec homes because I tend to do them too nicely. In fact, this was the last spec home that I ended up doing for 16 years. I'm doing one now for the first time. It took me that long in therapy to get over it. But anyway, going back to 2008, a couple of mistakes that I made was that I did it way too nice of a remodel. I could have just done a light update and it probably would have sold. And I would have, timing wise, obviously you can't, predict a great recession like that, but I certainly would have been done ahead of time. Anyway, long story short, I had this $1 million remodel and the stock market collapses. I'm paying $5,000 a month for my mortgage at the bank because I financed, the construction work plus to buy the home originally. And there was a couple things that I just, in hindsight, I should have been more aware of. For one thing, it had a tuck under garage. And the home that it was really going to appeal to was empty nesters and probably older people. And again, a tuck under garage with stairs. There was no elevator. You eliminated a lot of people that have mobility issues. It had main floor living, but you had to get stairs to go up it. So that was strike number one. Strike number two, obviously, was the fact that it was historically one of the worst times to own a home and try to sell it because everyone was completely in shock with what was happening in the economy. There was really no end in sight. And I remember I, at that time, I'm trying to think if I had an office. I remember I moved my office into the basement of this house because I thought my thought process at this point, I'd been in business for only 3 years. So I'm very young at the time. I'm, 28 years old, and I've got this home. I'm like, I don't need an office. I've got $1 million office. It's this home I'm trying to sell. So I officed out of there, trying to sell it, trying to meet with people, try to network. And I was just getting no luck. And I remember very clearly, and someday I hope to have the same wisdom that my dad had and the same courage to do this because now being a dad of three kids, I understand how difficult of a thing that I had asked my dad, or what I perceive now would be difficult. So at that time, as I mentioned, I was paying 5,000 a month, and I remember calling my dad, and because the bank wouldn't renegotiate their terms, and the bank wouldn't give us any leniency, and we had no other jobs going, as I recall, maybe a small remodel, so I had no income coming in and only going out, and I mean, at 28 years old, I just didn't have a lot. And so I'm thinking, I'm staring down the barrel of this gun. What do I do? Banks won't give me more money. I can't find another job to get some liquidity, and I can't sell this thing. And so I called my dad, who had been a builder. He had retired, in 2001, so well before this happened. And I said, Dad, could I borrow $30,000? Thinking it would give me 5 months of reprieve to kind of figure things out. I remember not wanting to ask him because I felt like it was like I failed, or I felt like it was sort of a cop out, like ask your parents for money. Like I didn't want to do that. But I felt like I had no other options. So anyway, I remember my dad just gave me very wise advice. He said no. And he said, if you can't figure out how to stop the bleeding, we're throwing good money after bad. And he said, what are you afraid of? Like, what is the fear that you're afraid of? And he said, is it fear of bankruptcy? Is it fear of failing? And basically he said, is that it? Is that the worst thing you're afraid of? Because it's really not that bad. And I remember him being kind of funny about it. He said, I mean, worst case scenario, you go bankrupt and close down, the house gets foreclosed on, you move home, you live in the basement, your mom makes you Swedish pancakes, and life goes on. And I remember thinking at the time, like, yeah, Swedish pancakes every morning sounds pretty great. And I sort of laughed about it. And he said, you've got to go figure it out. And that was that. And in some ways, I've looked at that as like a really pivotal point in my career because it was sort of like I had permission to fail, and that's really what this series is about. Losers are winners, and so I basically wasn't afraid anymore because what when you take away the fear of failure, you realize that I'm not saying that there's not, especially as you get older and not have a family, that'd be a lot different to face that now with three kids and a wife and other things. But at that time, as a single person, no other responsibilities really in life, like failing wasn't really that big of a deal. It just I didn't realize it. And so I've likened it before onto like a trapeze artist where you can perform the tricks with the net below you, but when you take away the net and failing is, in this case, death, a metaphor, like, are you more confident? Can you get rid of that fear of failure? And sometimes fear or sometimes that hunger, you need that little pep in your step. There's this great saying, I remember it was in the book Born to Run, and it said that it doesn't matter if you're the lion or the gazelle in Africa. When the sun gets up, you better be running. And I've liked that a lot in business that, you're busy getting busy or you're busy being busy. But like business and being busy sort of breeds activity. Activity breeds activity, and I feel like having a little fire behind you definitely makes you get more creative. A lot of people have learned a lot of things when they didn't have much because the sort of, necessity is the mother of invention. So anyway, I say all that with from that point on, I really feel like my career sort of took off in the sense of like I wasn't afraid of failing anymore because I think failure is a bit of a construct. It's not real. And there's lots of options. Even now, like if something bad happened with our spec home or I couldn't sell it or whatever, like I have options. We could sell the home we live in. We could rent a very modest home. Like there are things you can do. It may not be what you want to do. It may not be the things that you thought your career would take, but I think the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive, like that's a different kind of winning. And sometimes just surviving is thriving. I think of how many businesses went out of business from 2008 to 2012. And I think in some ways I look back and I was super lucky in the sense that I had only been in business for 3 years. I only had one spec home. A lot of people owned huge land positions or multiple homes and way more successful builders than I did was went out of business because they were overextended. They couldn't sell anything. And then with a lot of builders gone, when it did finally come back, there's fewer builders around. And so then here I am standing in the pile of ashes and I'm available where a lot of people weren't. And so we started getting more work. So anyway, how did I get through 2008, 9, and 10? So I couldn't sell it. So I thought, well, what if I could rent it? Could I at least cover my mortgage? So this led me down to an interesting scenario. So I was able to rent it to a person I won't name because who knows if if I'll get sued. So I rented it to this person, and the craziest thing happened. So he rented it for a year up front. As I recall, it was like $54,000 for the year. And I remember I didn't want to touch the money because I didn't want to spend it. So I put it in a separate bank account at the bank, and it was just deposited there, and every month it would pay my mortgage to the bank. So basically, I had a year of sort of reprieve from the guillotine.
Lake Society magazine is Minneapolis' premier target market boutique lifestyle and design publication. It embodies the unique lifestyles and design of the Minneapolis City Lakes neighborhoods. From Lake of the Isles to Lake Harriet, it showcases the best in local design projects by both premier builders, architects, and interior designers in this area. Lake Society magazine has the look and feel of a national publication with glossy covers, high-end finishes. It's mailed directly to upper bracket single-family homeowners in the City Lakes area, and it's the perfect local coffee tabletop publication. Subscriptions can also be available through the website lakesocietymagazine.com. Additionally, publisher and founder Karen Steckel has over 27 years in the local magazine publishing industry and has a passion for high-end photography and quality graphics. Her commitment to quality, visual simplicity, and beauty are strongly reflected in her beautiful Lake Society magazine. This episode of The Curious Builder is brought to you by Olive and Vine Socials. If you're a builder, a designer, or an architect looking to grow your brand without dancing on TikTok or spending your whole life on social media, listen up. Olive and Vine Socials specializes in Pinterest marketing, blogging, and email strategy for luxury home brands. They help you turn your beautiful work into a strategic SEO-driven content that drives real traffic and connects you with your ideal clients without burning you out. Ready to grow smarter and not harder? Visit oliveandvinesocials.com and tell them the Curious Builder sent you. Just so you know, I've been working with Alyssa over at Olive and Vine for 3 years. She helped us launch the podcast. She's helped us grow our brand at Mark Williams Custom Homes. I could not do what I've done without her help. And I'm more than happy to announce that she's our latest sponsor for the Curious Builder podcast.
I remember getting calls from the police because there was no blinds on the house because I had not, at that time, we didn't do furnishing. I didn't even have an interior designer on the project or anything like that. That was really early in my career. And anyway, the guy was watching, pornography on an 80-inch screen TV in the great room. And it was a family neighborhood, and all these, moms and people were walking by the house, and they'd call the cops. And of course, my name is on the public record. So I would get called, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm renting the house. Like, I'm not there. I can't do anything about what this guy is watching or not watching. And I remember just being like, this, you can't even make up this story. This is so crazy. So anyway, he rented it for a year, and he had a 2-year contract. So he was going to rent for a second year. And he tried to renegotiate on his contract that he had already signed. At this point, the recession's still not over. If anything, it got worse. And he was trying to, obviously, he had agreed to something, and now he's trying to back out of it. Long story short, he didn't pay me for 2 months, and I had to evict him. I'd never gone through that process before, so I evicted him, and then I had the home back again. So now I'm back under the gun of trying to sell this house again. And I remember at the time, I was living in Minneapolis. I owned a house with my cousin, who's like my brother, and we were renting out a couple of rooms to college students down at the University of Minnesota. And there was two brothers, Carlin and Nevin. I'm good friends with them even yet today here now, 20 years later. And they were sleeping in the basement. They had two nickels to rub together, but it was two nickels more than I had. And I remember I was desperate. I couldn't make the mortgage, and I was back under the gun. I had very little liquidity to pay my mortgage. And so I remember I said, hey, for an extra $100 a month, would you guys rent my bedroom? You can sleep in my bed. I won't sleep in a bed. I'll sleep on the couch. And they said yes. So I've often joked that you're in dire straits when you're renting to two college kids that have more money than you, and you're sleeping on the couch in your own home. So I think that lasted for like 2 months, and I got a build job, and I was able to kick them out and say, "Hey, you can go back to being in the basement, and I'll get my bedroom back." And really, that was kind of the low point for sure financially. And then we sold the house to a single lady with a couple kids. It worked out perfect for her, and I think it's sold a couple times since then. It's to this day, it's the only home I've ever lost money on. I remember that was really difficult. I had to go to all my subcontractors and say, hey, I lost six figures on this house. And there were several people that I owed, and I'd never owed people anything. And so I wrote down debt, I paid what I could, and I basically said, hey, you guys are my people on my next homes. I mean, I work with you on all my homes, and let's come out of this together. And they all agreed. And there's still some of them today that I still work with here, what is it, 16, 17 years later, and we still have that shared experience. In fact, one of the framers who I was childhood friends with is now he was the framer on that house. So it's just sort of interesting how time works and how you look back at that. So anyway, that was probably one of my bigger quote loser or winner stories, and one that I often tell to people. I've mentioned it before, not quite in this much detail on the podcast before, because I felt like it was a really pivotal moment, and I have a lot of respect for my dad and how he handled that. And I think just how we define difficult situations really helps us. I'm thinking of a quote right now that's been one of my favorite quotes, excuse me, for a long time, which is, the same hot water that turns a potato soft turns the egg hard. Basically, like, the hot water was the same for both. how we react to the situation is sort of up to us. And I think if you don't do something hard, it's hard to have future successes. I think I look at people that have had longer careers and are wiser than I am. And I think, again, I think a lot of people have had a lot of difficult experiences. And it's those difficult experiences. We don't always want them, we're not always willing for them. But I think when we look at them as opportunity, I think that is when we really grow. And I think that's when we level up our skill sets, when you're desperate, there's all kinds of things that you do. And hopefully we have people around you that can support you. I mean, hopefully desperation can lead to risky behavior, obviously, too. And so I think everyone navigates the difficult challenges in their life differently. And it's only in hindsight that you can be thankful for them. There's not too many times that I've had a difficult situation where I'm thankful for it in the middle of it. It's kind of like if you fell out of a boat and you're swimming to shore, that's not that fun. But then when you get to shore, you're thankful that you knew how to swim and you were able to keep going. And so, anyway, that's my losers is winners stories. I'm trying to think if there's any others that come to mind. I mean, I guess some that come to mind are jobs that we've all lost bids. There's two homes that I bike by every Sunday when I bike with my guys around a lake, and I see these two homes that I lost out on. And I think there's nothing I did wrong. It's not really losing necessarily. But I think when we see a house that we wish we would have got, there's a little bit of a competitive fire in us that we want to do better on the next one. So again, I think losing is really important to our development, to being a better builder, better entrepreneur. And I've made bad hires before. It doesn't mean they were bad people. I think they're great people, but they just weren't the right fit in the right house for our in-house work. And so I think understanding that we are all human and we make mistakes, just like our employees make mistakes, just like clients make mistakes. And so I think having some compassion with yourself and realizing we don't get it right all the time, but what can we learn from it? How can we get better? And in terms of hiring, I sort of joked that, and I think this is true, my last hire, I didn't hire them, my team hired them. And I think going forward in my career, my goal is to not hire anybody, but that my team would hire the people that we need, because I feel like they're more objective. They know what our culture is, and they're going to hire people that sort of fit in. And I think when you have a bunch of A players want to run with A players. The A team doesn't want to play with the C team. It's not saying that someone who's green can't grow and get better, but I let the team decide who they want to play with. And I'm pretty excited. I've gone through those. You'd like to listen to podcasts. You like to listen to people so you don't have to experience every single mistake to learn it yourself. I'm thankful for the times where people have shared experiences and I learned from them. So hopefully some of these will help somebody else. And I'm guessing there's a lot of people out there that can relate to some of the things that these series of missteps and losing have led to successes in their own career. Have a great week and see you next Monday for our normal Mondays.
For those that have been listening to the Curious Builder podcast, you know how much I love the Contractor Coalition Summit. It's been the single biggest force multiplier in my business over 21 years. We're excited to announce again that we're coming back to Chicago, November 7th through the 10th. All the details can be found at thecontractorcoalitionsummit.com. And under the promo code for a $2,500 discount, type in Curious Builder. We'll see you in Chicago. Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor, share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth, and with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.